Marcus Chen stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, 43 stories above Manhattan, watching the city pulse with life he no longer felt part of. At 38 years old, he'd built Chen Technologies from a single patent into a $15 billion empire. Forbes called him a visionary. Wall Street called him untouchable. His twin daughters called him nothing at all, because they couldn't see him. Emma and Sophia, 5 years old, born 3 months premature with retinopathy of prematurity that stole their sight before they'd ever seen their mother's face, before they'd ever seen anything at all. The doctors had been clear from the beginning. Total bilateral blindness, permanent, irreversible. No surgery could fix what hadn't developed properly. No treatment could restore what had never existed. His wife, Diane, had tried for 18 months. 18 months of specialist appointments, experimental treatments, trips to Germany, Switzerland, Johns Hopkins, 18 months of watching her daughters navigate darkness while she slowly drowned in her own. Marcus had been too busy to notice, too focused on quarterly earnings and product launches, too convinced that money could solve anything if you threw enough of it at the problem. He'd been in Singapore closing a $2 billion acquisition when Diane's sister called. Found her in the garage, engine running. Girls were at preschool. She left a note. "I can't watch them live in darkness anymore. I can't be the light they need. I'm so tired, Marcus. I'm so tired." That was 14 months ago. 14 months of Marcus trying to be both parents while running an empire. 14 months of realizing that all his money, all his power, all his connections couldn't bring back his wife or give his daughters sight. 14 months of watching Emma and Sophia retreat further into a world he couldn't reach. They didn't laugh anymore, didn't play, didn't explore or ask questions or show any of the curiosity that blind children were supposed to develop to compensate for what they couldn't see. They just sat, in their room, on the floor, rocking slightly, humming the same tuneless sounds over and over, trapped in their own darkness. The developmental specialist said it was trauma, selective withdrawal. The girls had felt their mother's depression, absorbed her hopelessness, and when she disappeared, they'd decided the world wasn't safe. Better to retreat. Better to stay small and quiet and still. The doctors recommended intensive therapy, specialized schools, behavioral interventions. Marcus hired the best of everything. None of it worked. The therapists quit after a few weeks. The schools called him daily with concerns. The behavioral specialists threw around words like unreachable and profound developmental delays, and "we've never seen anything quite like this." His phone buzzed. Margaret Chen, his mother, calling for the 3rd time that morning. "Marcus, you can't keep doing this." "Doing what, Ma?" "Hiding them. Hiding yourself. Those girls need more than money and specialists. They need their mother," Marcus said, his voice flat. "They need to see. I can't give them either of those things." "No, but you can give them yourself. When's the last time you actually sat with them?" Marcus closed his eyes. He couldn't remember. He paid people to sit with them, paid people to feed them, dress them, try to reach them. He came home late, looked in on them sleeping, and left before they woke, because watching them sit in that darkness, unreachable and alone, was more than he could bear. "The latest caregiver quit this morning," his mother continued. "That's 18 in 14 months, Marcus. 18 people who couldn't handle 48 hours. I know. Do you? Do you know what that's doing to those girls? Every time someone new comes, they shut down even more. Every time someone leaves, they learn again that people don't stay. What do you want me to do?" His voice cracked. "I don't know how to reach them. I don't know how to help them." "Come home," she said softly. "Just come home and be their father." He ended the call. Stood there at the window. Looked at his reflection, a stranger in a $2,000 suit who'd forgotten how to be human. His assistant knocked. "Mr. Chen, you have the board meeting in 10 minutes. Cancel it." "Sir?" "Cancel everything. I'm going home." Section 2. The surveillance system. The Tribeca penthouse was silent when Marcus walked in at 2 in the afternoon. Mrs. Patterson, the housekeeper, looked up from folding laundry, startled. "Mr. Chen, we weren't expecting you." "Where are they?" "In their room." "The new caregiver, well, there is no new caregiver." "The agency said they'd call back." Marcus walked down the hall to the girls' room. The door was cracked open. He stood there, watching. Emma and Sophia sat on the floor in the corner, their backs against the wall, holding hands. Emma's head tilted slightly, listening to something Marcus couldn't hear. Sophia rocked forward and back, that tuneless hum filling the silence. They were wearing mismatched clothes. Emma's shirt was on backward. Sophia's socks didn't match. Their hair hadn't been brushed, because no one had been there to do it, because the latest caregiver had lasted exactly 26 hours before walking out. Marcus's hands clenched. This was his fault. All of it. He'd been so focused on building an empire that he'd lost his family. First, Diane, now his daughters, slipping further away every day. He walked to his office, opened his laptop, pulled up the security system. 12 cameras throughout the penthouse, installed 6 months ago after caregiver number 9 had been caught stealing Diane's jewelry. Caregiver number 11 had leaked photos to tabloids. Caregiver number 13 had fallen asleep while the girls wandered into the kitchen, and Emma had burned her hand on the stove. After that, Marcus had installed cameras everywhere: living room, kitchen, hallway, playroom, even the girls' room. He watched the footage every night from his office downtown, checked in on his phone during meetings. Not because he didn't trust caregivers, though he didn't, but because it was easier to watch his daughters through a screen than to face them in person. He pulled up the archived footage from the past week, watched caregiver number 18, a certified specialist with a PhD in developmental psychology and 20 years of experience, try to engage the girls. Day 1. She'd entered their room with toys, books, tactile learning materials. Emma and Sophia didn't move, just sat there, holding hands, rocking. The specialist tried to place a toy in Emma's hand. Emma dropped it immediately, tried to read aloud. Neither girl responded. After 4 hours, the specialist left the room, went to the kitchen, called someone. Marcus turned up the volume. They're not responsive. Not to sound, not to touch, not to anything. I've never seen withdrawal this severe. This isn't just trauma, this is complete dissociation. Day 2. The specialist tried a different approach: music therapy, aromatherapy, even bringing in a therapy dog. The girls didn't react. The specialist grew frustrated, started speaking sharply. Emma, you need to try. Sophia, I know you can hear me. Still nothing. By noon on day 2, the specialist was on the phone with the agency. I can't do this. These children need psychiatric intervention, possibly medication. This is beyond my scope. She'd been gone by dinner. Marcus closed the laptop, put his head in his hands. 18 caregivers in 14 months. Some quit after a day. The longest had made it 3 weeks before admitting defeat. All of them trained professionals. All of them equipped with degrees and methods and experience. None of them could reach his daughters. His mother was right. He was hiding. From the board, from the city, from the truth that all his money meant nothing if he couldn't help the 2 people who mattered most. His phone rang. The agency. Mr. Chen, I apologize for what happened with Dr. Morrison. We're struggling to find candidates willing to take this placement. Why? The woman hesitated. Sir, word has gotten around. Your daughter's case is complex. The turnover rate makes people nervous. And frankly, the liability. How much? Excuse me? How much would it take to get someone willing to try? Mr. Chen, it's not about money at this point. It's about finding someone with the right training, the right temperament. I'll pay double, triple, whatever it takes. Silence. Then, there is someone. But she's not what you're looking for. What do you mean? She has no formal training with special needs children. No degrees. She's been working as a housekeeper, actually. But she heard about your situation through her church and called asking if she could try. Marcus's jaw tightened. You're telling me no trained professional will take this job, so you're sending me a housekeeper with no qualifications? I'm telling you, she asked, specifically about your daughters. Said she felt called to help them. Called? Yes, sir. I know it sounds. Send her information. I'll review it. He hung up. Opened the email that came through 2 minutes later. Name: Grace Williams, 42 years old. Education: high school diploma, 2 years of community college. Experience: 15 years in housekeeping, elder care, some child care. References: Pastor Thomas Wright, Riverside Community Church. Mrs. Eleanor Chen, his mother what? Dr. Sarah Kim, pediatrician. Marcus called his mother immediately. You gave a reference for a housekeeper to work with Emma and Sophia. Grace is good people, Marcus. You know her? She cleans at the senior center, where I volunteer. We talk. She told me about losing her son. Marcus went cold. What? Her boy, Daniel. He was born blind too. Lived to 12 years old before his heart gave out congenital defect they didn't catch in time. She spent 12 years learning how to help a blind child thrive. Taught him to read Braille, to navigate by sound, to play piano. That boy lived more fully in 12 years than most people do in 80. Marcus's throat tightened. And you think she can help Emma and Sophia? I think she's the only person who won't see them as broken. She'll see them as her son. And maybe that's what they need. After they hung up, Marcus sat in the dark of his office, thought about 18 failed attempts, thought about his daughters sitting in that room, unreachable, trapped, thought about a woman who'd loved a blind child and lost him, who looked at his daughters and saw possibility instead of tragedy. He typed out an email. Come Monday morning, 7 a.m., 3 days trial. Her response came 2 minutes later. Thank you for trusting me with your beautiful girls. I'll be there. Marcus walked back to his daughter's room. They were exactly where he'd left them. Silent, still, lost. Someone's coming, he whispered, though they couldn't hear him. Someone who might understand. Emma's head tilted slightly, like she'd caught the sound of his voice but not the words. Sophia kept rocking. Marcus backed out of the room, went to his bedroom, opened the drawer where he kept Diane's things, found the note she'd left, the one he'd read 1,000 times. I can't watch them live in darkness anymore. He folded it carefully, put it back. I know, he whispered, but I can't stop trying. That night, he didn't go back to the office, didn't check his phone, just sat in the living room, watching the security feed from the girls' room on his laptop. Emma and Sophia stayed in their corner, rocking, humming, holding hands in the dark they'd never escape, and Marcus watched, because that's all he knew how to do anymore. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Section 3. The humble caregiver arrives. Monday morning, 6:45 a.m. Marcus was already in the kitchen, coffee in hand, when the doorman called up. Mr. Chen, Miss Williams is here. Send her up. He'd barely slept. Spent Sunday reviewing the security footage again, researching developmental approaches for blind children, reading studies about trauma and withdrawal. None of it gave him hope, just more confirmation that his daughters were trapped in a place no one could reach. The elevator chimed. Marcus opened the door. Grace Williams stood in the hallway, and she wasn't what he'd expected. Tall, black, with silver threading through her braided hair. She wore simple dark pants, a pressed white blouse, and carried one small canvas bag. But it was her face that stopped him calm, weathered by grief but not defeated by it. Eyes that had seen suffering and come out knowing something most people never learned. Mr. Chen. Her voice was soft, steady. Thank you for this opportunity. Come in. He stepped aside. You understand this is just a trial? 3 days. I understand. She walked in, looked around the penthouse, didn't react to the obvious wealth, the art, the furniture, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, just took it all in quietly, like she was reading the space for something more important than money. The cameras, she said. Not a question. Marcus stiffened. Yes, everywhere except the bathrooms. After some incidents with previous caregivers, I needed to. You needed to protect your girls. I understand. My son used to say, I had eyes in the back of my head. She smiled slightly. Different circumstances, same worry. She wasn't defensive, wasn't offended, just understood. Would you like to meet them? Marcus asked. Not yet. First, tell me about them. Not their diagnosis. I read the medical files you sent. Tell me who they are. Marcus stood there, throat tight, because he realized with crushing shame that he didn't know how to answer that question. Emma is quieter, he started. She's technically the older twin by 4 minutes. She likes... He stopped. What did Emma like? He didn't know anymore. She used to like when Diane sang to her, and Sophia is more reactive, gets upset more easily. Or she used to. Now they're both just shut down. Grace finished gently. Yes, and you? She looked at him. Really looked. How are you? No one had asked him that in 14 months. Not his board, not the caregivers, not even his mother. Everyone asked about the girls, about the business, about logistics and schedules and medical updates. No one asked about him. He couldn't finish. Grace nodded. Drowning, I understand. When my Daniel died, I stopped eating for 3 months. People kept asking about funeral arrangements, about clearing out his room, about moving forward. No one asked if I was okay. She paused. I wasn't. But eventually, I had to choose stay in the deep end or learn to swim again. Marcus's eyes burned. I don't know how to reach them. Then maybe we learn together. She said it so simply, not as a professional with a plan, just as another broken person who understood. They're in their room, Marcus said. Down the hall. Last door on the right. Grace picked up her bag. I'm going to go in alone first, if that's okay. Just sit with them. No expectations, no agenda. Just be present. They won't respond. They don't respond to anyone. That's okay. Sometimes the first step in reaching someone isn't making them respond. It's showing them you're willing to stay, even when they don't. She walked down the hall. Marcus watched from his office doorway as she opened the girl's room door, stepped inside, closed it gently behind her. Then he opened his laptop, pulled up the security feed from their room, and watched. Grace Williams stood inside the twins' room for a full minute without moving. Just stood there, looking at Emma and Sophia in their corner, taking in everything, the way Emma's head tilted listening, the rhythm of Sophia's rocking, the protective way they held hands, the careful distance they'd put between themselves and the door. She didn't speak, didn't approach, just set her bag down quietly and sat on the floor. Not near them, that would be too much, but not across the room either. Close enough to share their space, far enough to let them feel safe. Emma's humming stopped. Her head turned slightly toward Grace. Sophia's rocking slowed but didn't stop. Grace pulled out her Bible, the worn one with her son's name written inside the cover, and opened it. Not to read aloud, just to read. Her lips moved silently, her hand occasionally turning a page, her presence steady and unthreatening. 5 minutes passed. 10, 15. Emma's head turned more toward Grace, listening, processing this new person who'd entered their space but wasn't demanding anything. At 20 minutes, Grace started humming, low, gentle, a hymn, His Eye is on the Sparrow, the one she'd sung to Daniel every night before bed, the one she'd sung at his funeral, the one she sang now when she missed him so much she couldn't breathe. Sophia's rocking changed, synced slightly with Grace's rhythm. Emma's head tilted more, like she was trying to catch every note. Grace kept humming, kept reading, kept being present without asking for anything in return. In his office, Marcus watched the screen, throat tight. In 48 hours, Dr. Morrison had tried everything, toys, techniques, therapeutic interventions. This woman was just sitting there, humming, reading, and his daughters were responding. Not dramatically, not obviously, but their bodies had changed. They were listening, they were aware, they were present. At 45 minutes, Grace closed her Bible, spoke softly, not to the girls but to the air. When my son was little, people used to tell me he'd never learn to read, never play music, never live independently. They saw his blindness and decided his limits for him. She paused. They were wrong. Daniel taught himself to play piano by ear, read every Braille book in the library, navigated our neighborhood better than kids who could see. She wasn't telling the girls this. She was telling Marcus, through the camera, that she saw possibility where everyone else saw tragedy. The doctors said he'd never understand joy because he couldn't see beauty, but they were wrong about that too. Daniel knew joy, deep joy, the kind that doesn't come from seeing, the kind that comes from being seen. Emma made a sound, small, almost nothing, but it was the first intentional sound she'd made toward another person in weeks. Grace smiled. I hear you, sweetheart. I hear you. She didn't move closer, didn't try to force connection, just acknowledged Emma's voice, honored it, and stayed. By the time Marcus's phone alarm went off at 8:30, his usual time to leave for the office, he was still at his laptop, still watching, still holding his breath. Grace had been in that room for 90 minutes. She hadn't forced the girls to do anything, hadn't tried to fix them, had just shared their space with patience and presence and quiet faith, and Emma had made a sound, one small sound, but it was more than 18 caregivers had achieved in 14 months. Marcus closed his laptop, walked to the girls' room, knocked softly. Grace opened the door, stepped out into the hallway. How was it? He asked. Beautiful. They're listening. They're aware. They're just scared. Of what? Of trusting again. Of reaching out and having another person disappear. The words hit like a physical blow. Every time someone new comes into their world, they have to decide. Is this person safe? Will this person stay? And every time that person leaves, they learn again that staying is too dangerous. Marcus's vision blurred. That's my fault. All those caregivers, you were trying to help them, but maybe what they need isn't more help. Maybe they just need someone who commits to staying, even when it's hard. Will you? Grace looked at him with those eyes that had buried a child and survived. Mr. Chen, I buried my son 14 months ago. I thought I'd never love another child again. But the moment I read about your girls, I knew. Her voice caught. God kept me alive for this. To teach Emma and Sophia what Daniel taught me, that blindness isn't darkness. It's just a different way of seeing light. Marcus couldn't speak. I'll stay, Grace said simply. 3 days, 3 months, 3 years. However long it takes, I'm not leaving. And for the first time since Diane died, Marcus felt something dangerous stir in his chest. Hope. The first week, Grace didn't follow any protocol. No behavioral charts. No developmental goals. No therapy schedules. She just showed up every morning at 7 and sat with Emma and Sophia in their corner. She hummed hymns, read her Bible, told quiet stories about Daniel, how he'd memorized the subway system by sound alone, how he'd taught neighborhood kids to navigate blindfolded, how he'd laughed at things no one else found funny because he heard the world differently. By day 3, Sophia's rocking had synced completely with Grace's humming. By day 5, Emma was making small sounds, not words, but intentional noises meant for Grace's ears. Marcus watched it all through the cameras, watched from his office downtown during meetings, watched at night when he couldn't sleep, watched this woman work miracles through simple presence. On day 8, something shifted. Marcus was reviewing contracts when his phone buzzed with a motion alert from the girls' room. He pulled up the feed and froze. Grace was standing. Emma and Sophia were standing too, hands outstretched, touching Grace's arms. That's right, Grace said softly. I'm right here. Can you feel my hands? I'm not going anywhere. She guided their fingers to her face, let them explore chin, cheeks, nose, forehead, learning her through touch. My name is Grace. Can you say that? Grace? Silence. Then Emma's small voice, rusty from disuse. Gee, Grace. Marcus's phone clattered to his desk. His heart stopped. Emma had spoken. His daughter had said a word. For the first time in 9 months, Emma had used language. He watched Sophia's lips move, trying to form the sound. Gee, gay. Close, sweetheart. Grace, you're doing so good. Grace, Sophia whispered. Both girls, speaking, to her, for her. Marcus grabbed his jacket, told his assistant to cancel everything, and ran. Section 5. The Discovery Moment. Marcus burst through the penthouse door at 2 in the afternoon. Mrs. Patterson looked startled. Mr. Chen, you're home. He didn't respond. Just walked straight to the girls' room and stopped at the doorway. What he saw shattered him completely. Emma and Sophia were standing in the middle of the room. No wall to lean against. No hands held together for safety. Just standing, arms out, turning slowly in circles. And they were laughing. Real laughter. The sound Marcus thought he'd never hear again. Grace stood nearby, making different sounds, clapping, snapping, tapping a wooden spoon against a pot. The girls turned toward each sound, tracking it, identifying it. Their faces lit with concentration and joy. That's the pot, Grace said. Can you point to where the sound came from? Emma pointed. Perfectly accurate. Yes, and this one. A bell rang. Sophia pointed. Also perfect. You're mapping the room by sound, Grace said. You're learning to see with your ears, just like Daniel did. Then Emma did something impossible. She took a step, one small step away from her safe spot in the corner, toward Grace's voice. That's it, Emma. Come to me. I'm right here. Another step. Another. Emma's hands reached out, found Grace's arms, and held on. I did it, Emma whispered. I walked. You did, baby. You walked. I'm so proud of you. Sophia followed. 3 steps, 4, into Grace's arms. Both girls, walking independently, laughing, speaking, engaged. Marcus's knees gave out. He collapsed against the doorframe, hand over his mouth, tears streaming down his face. Grace looked up, saw him, her eyes filled with understanding. Girls, she said gently, someone's here. Someone who's been waiting to hear your beautiful voices. Who? Emma asked. Your daddy. Both girls went still, silent. Their joy vanished instantly, replaced by uncertainty and fear. Marcus's heart broke. His own daughters were afraid of him. "It's okay," Grace said. "He's not going to hurt you. He loves you so much. He's just been scared too." "Scared of what?" Sophia whispered. "Of not being enough. Of not knowing how to help you. Of watching you hurt and not being able to fix it." Emma's voice was so small. "Is he still here?" "I'm here," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I'm here, baby. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I've been gone." The girls didn't move toward him. But they didn't retreat either. Grace held out her hand to Marcus. An invitation. He took it, let her guide him into the room, let her place his hands where Emma and Sophia could reach them. "This is your daddy's hand," Grace said. "Feel how big it is? Feel how warm?" Emma touched his fingers cautiously. Sophia followed, both girls exploring this familiar stranger who'd been absent from their lives. "I've been watching you," Marcus whispered. "Every day, through the cameras, watching you get stronger, watching Grace teach you. I've seen everything." "You were watching?" Emma asked. "Always. I never stopped watching. I just didn't know how to be close." "Why not?" Marcus looked at Grace. She nodded. "Tell them the truth. Because seeing you hurt me too much. Because I didn't know how to help you. Because I was scared I'd do everything wrong." Sophia's small hand squeezed his finger. "We were scared too." "I know, baby. I know. But Grace isn't scared," Emma said. "She says we're not broken." Marcus's throat closed. "You're not. You're perfect. And I'm so sorry it took me this long to show up." For the first time in 14 months, Emma reached for him. Just lifted her arms. And Marcus pulled both his daughters close, held them against his chest, and sobbed. "I'm here now," he whispered. "I'm here, and I'm not leaving. I promise." Grace slipped out quietly, gave them privacy, gave them space to begin healing together. 3 months later, the penthouse was unrecognizable. Braille labels on everything, cabinets, doors, drawers. Tactile markers on the floors so the girls could navigate independently. A piano in the corner because Emma had asked about music. Audiobooks stacked beside their beds because Sophia loved stories. The cameras were gone. Marcus didn't need them anymore. He was home by 4 every day, worked from the penthouse 3 days a week, had dinner with his daughters every night. Grace lived in the guest room now, not as an employee, as family. She'd become Auntie Grace, the woman who taught Emma to read Braille, who taught Sophia to identify spices by smell, who taught both girls that blindness wasn't a limitation but a different kind of vision. One Saturday morning, Marcus found Grace in the kitchen making breakfast. Emma and Sophia were helping, really helping, measuring ingredients by feel, cracking eggs, stirring batter. "We're making pancakes, Daddy," Emma announced proudly. "I can see that." "No, you can't see," Sophia said seriously. "You have to smell them. Close your eyes." Marcus closed his eyes, let his other senses take over, smelled vanilla and cinnamon and butter melting in the pan, heard the sizzle, felt the warmth from the stove. "You're right," he said. "Smelling is better." The girls giggled. After breakfast, they all went to Central Park. Emma and Sophia walked with their white canes, now special child-sized ones Grace had ordered. They navigated the paths independently, occasionally reaching for Marcus's hand but mostly exploring on their own. At the playground, they climbed on equipment, played with other children, laughed when they fell, and got back up. Marcus watched his daughters alive, engaged, thriving, and felt Grace's hand slip into his. "You did this," he said quietly. "We did this. You showed up. That's what mattered. I was late, but you came." That's what they'll remember. They sat on a bench, watching the girls play. Emma was teaching another child how to play with eyes closed. Sophia was describing colors she'd never seen but understood through texture and temperature. "Grace," Marcus said, "I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. I do. You gave me my daughters back. You gave me my life back." She smiled. "No, I just helped you see what was always there. You just needed someone to believe it was possible." Marcus turned to face her. "Stay. I'm already staying." "No, I mean stay. Permanently. Not as their caregiver. As family. As—" He couldn't finish. Grace's eyes filled with tears. "As what, Marcus?" "As the woman who saved us. As the mother they need. As the person His voice broke. "As the person I'm falling in love with." She wiped her eyes. "Your daughters were the first people I loved after Daniel. The first people who made me want to wake up again." "And me?" She smiled. You were the second. He kissed her. Gentle, grateful, full of promises neither of them thought they'd make again. Emma's voice carried across the playground. Auntie Grace, Daddy's kissing you, Sophia gasped. Are you going to be our mummy? Grace pulled back, looked at Marcus. Is that what this is? If you'll have us. She called to the girls. Come here, babies. Emma and Sophia ran over, actually ran, their canes tapping confidently. They found Grace and Marcus on the bench, climbed up between them. We have something to ask you, Grace said. What? Emma asked. How would you feel if I stayed forever? If I became your mummy officially? Both girls went silent. Then Emma spoke, her voice serious. Would you leave like our first mummy did? Grace's voice was steady. Sure. No, baby. Never. I promise. How do we know? Because I already lost one child. I know what that feels like. And I choose you every single day. Not because I have to, because I want to. Sophia touched Grace's face. You really want us? I really, really want you. Emma turned to Marcus. Daddy, do you want her too? More than anything. The girls looked at each other, having one of their twin conversations that needed no words. Then Sophia smiled. Okay, you can be our mummy, but you have to teach us more things, Emma added. Like how Daniel learned piano. Grace laughed through tears. Deal. 6 months later, the photographer adjusted his camera. Okay, Chen family, everyone look. Oh, sorry, Marcus laughed. They can't look, but they can listen. Say something interesting. Butterfly? Both girls turned toward the sound, faces bright and engaged. The camera clicked. That photo would hang in the entryway. Marcus in a simple suit, Grace beside him in a white dress, Emma and Sophia in matching lavender, everyone laughing at the confused photographer. The wedding had been small, just family and the people who mattered. Pastor Wright, who'd first told Grace about the job. Marcus's mother, who'd given the reference. Mrs. Patterson, who'd watched the transformation and wept. Now, as they sat in the garden reception, Emma played a simple melody on her keyboard. Sophia sang along, her voice clear and true. She couldn't do that 6 months ago, Marcus whispered to Grace. She could. She just needed someone to believe she could. Marcus looked at his wife and his daughters, and felt something he'd forgotten was possible. Wholeness. Not because everything was fixed. Emma and Sophia would always be blind. The grief over Diane would always be there. The lost time couldn't be recovered, but they were together. They were trying. They were choosing each other every day. Thank you, Marcus said, for not giving up, for seeing them, for staying. Grace kissed him softly. Thank you for finally coming home. Emma's song ended. Sophia applauded. Someone asked for another, and in that garden, surrounded by the people they loved, the Chen family played music together. Not perfect, not without struggle, but full of light. Even in the darkness, especially in the darkness, there was light. And sometimes that light came wearing an apron, carrying a Bible, and believing in miracles that doctors said were impossible. Grace had taught Emma and Sophia to see without eyes. But she'd taught Marcus something even more important, that love doesn't fix everything, but it makes everything worth fighting for. The greatest wealth isn't counted in billions. It's counted in moments like this, daughters laughing, music playing, a family that was broken, learning to be whole. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.